Now this video will explain to you what happens on the day of your test. So your instructor will give you an hour's lesson before your test, just to go over all your manoeuvres, you show me, tell me, and they'll explain to you about the test. Your instructor will then bring you to the test centre. You're not allowed to go into the test centre more than 5 minutes before your test, so you might have to wait either down this road or another road. Your instructor will then bring you into the test centre. As you're driving into the test centre, it's a small road, first gear, just take your time, just be cautious. There may be cars leaving from a previous test depending on what time of the day your test is. There's a barrier here, but this barrier isn't usually here. So as you're driving down here, this is usually when the nerves just kick in. So the instructor will be talking to you, just telling you what you need to do, how much you want to pass your driving test, how much you just got to focus. It's only going to last for approximately 38 minutes. You just got to grit your teeth, do everything that you've been practicing with your instructor, just focus, talk to yourself, and you'll be fine. So as you come into the test centre, your instructor will help you, advise you where you need to go. As you can see, the road's quite small. There might be pupils already in the car park, or you might be the first one here. Normally they do a maximum of about 7 tests. At the moment you're usually looking at about 3, maybe 4 tests. Sometimes there might be motorbikes in here as well doing their test. Your instructor will drive you in here and just ask you to stop roughly where this black line is in the road, and they'll explain to you what you need to do for your reverse bay park. They'll explain to you that what you need to do is head over to the right to where the examiners park their cars and where the word examiners is painted on the road. They'll give you a letter to line up onto, or maybe even a car to line up onto. You head towards that letter, you come to a stop, put your handbrake on, put it into reverse, have a good look around. Your instructor will then give you a line to line up onto. Now written on the road, on the tarmac, is the word candidates. So your instructor will give you a letter that you need to line up your focal point on for where you need to turn. So normally you'd head up to either the second car that's parked, or the letter E, or the letter X. Just come to a stop, handbrake on, into neutral. There's no rush. There may be cars just waiting behind you, but there's no rush. Take your time, have a good look around. Then you're going to reverse back, and you're just going to line your focal point up on one of these letters. So for instance, if you get the letter T, just reverse back, line up on the letter T. You'll then go into the third bay along. 1, 2, 3. And in this case, it's the bay with the letter N in the middle. You reverse into the bay like you normally would. And don't forget, if you get it wrong, you can stop, you can drive forward, correct yourself, and reverse back. And you might find that there's some other cars here waiting for you to complete the manoeuvre. You'll then get out the car, and there is a waiting area that you can go and sit in. There is a toilet in the area as well. The examiners will come out pretty quick and they will call your name. You go over to the examiner, you give them your driving licence. They'll say to you, while we're checking your driving licence, I want you to read this declaration on this piece of paper, and I'd like to tick the 2 boxes and sign your name. So they'll give you a piece of paper, they'll give you a pen, just read the declaration. The declaration is just saying that the car that you're in is insured for you to drive. You tick the 2 boxes, you sign your name. Your signature must match the signature that is on the driving licence. Now sometimes pupils are nervous, their hands may be shaking a little bit. The examiner might ask you to redo your signature. Take your time, there's no rush, they're not timing you on how quick you can do it, just take your time. The examiner will then look at the driving licence, make sure that the photo matches what you look like. They then ask you to confirm that the address that is on the driving licence is your correct address. Now, it may not be, it might be where your parents live and you might live somewhere else. That is the address that your driving licence will be sent to. If you want to change that address, then they'll ask you to change the address on their iPad. If it's the correct address, the examiner will then give you back your driving licence. They'll then ask you, would you like your driving instructor to come with you on the test. Now that's up to you. That's something that you and your driving instructor will discuss before the test. They'll then ask you, would you like your instructor to be at the end of the test for the debrief? Say yes, and that allows the instructor to come over and listen to the examiner give the debrief. They'll then probably ask you to look at the iPad and confirm that your email address on the iPad is correct. If it isn't, you can correct it. You might find that the examiner, as well as having an iPad, might have a sat-nav in their hand. So straight away you know that you're going to do the independent driving using the sat-nav. The examiner will then say to you, lead the way to your car. So you just lead out of it, come out the reception area. The examiner will then introduce themselves. They'll then say to you, what would you like me to call you? So obviously just use your normal name, unless you'd like to be called something else. The examiner will then take you all the way up to this fence here. Then I'll take you up to this fence. They'll then get you to turn round and read a number plate. So the number plate might be on a car, or it might be one of these number plates that's secured to the wall. The examiner will then ask you to either one, go and sit in the car and make yourself comfortable. So just go over to the car, put your driving license and your piece of paper in the side pocket. Keys in the ignition, do not turn the engine on. Put your seatbelt on, make sure your mirrors are correct, take a deep breath and just tell yourself, right, all I need to do just for 38 minutes, just focus, concentrate, talk to myself, and it'll be nice and easy. It will go very quickly. Or the examiner might ask you to carry out one of the show me, tell me questions. So you might find that either they might ask you a question while you're standing outside, or they might ask you to open the bonnet and identify something that's in the bonnet, under the bonnet. The examiner will then walk around the car to make sure that the car's okay, that the tyres are okay, and it's got lights on the car. The examiner will then get in the car. If they've got a sat-nav, they'll put that onto the dashboard. The examiner will then say to you, would you like me to explain the test? Say yes. So the examiner will have their iPad. They will have taken a note of the license number of your driving instructor. They'll then say to you, this test will last for approximately 38 minutes. During that time, I will get you to carry out one of the maneuvers you've been practicing with your instructor. This will include 20 minutes of independent driving. This may include an emergency stop. Unless I tell you otherwise, always follow the road ahead. Have you got any questions? And obviously if you've got any questions, just ask them. At that point then, you might spot that some of the other cars are leaving on their test, or you might find that you're the first car to leave the test. The examiner might ask you to carry out maybe the reverse bay park. All you do is just repeat what you've done from the beginning. So you'll be in your bay, in this one where the letter N is. You'll be facing out. You just repeat what your instructor told you to do from the beginning. So this is at the beginning of the test. This is your opportunity to show the examiner how good you are at driving. And the thing is, with a bay park at the beginning, it's just your manoeuvring, just get it over and done with. And I find it usually just settles your nerves. So you'll come out, you'll slowly go all the way up here, and you'll notice it will be on a slight incline, and you head towards either the car that you were given to line up onto, or the letter E or the letter X. You come to a stop, apply your handbrake into neutral. Take a breather, into reverse, have a good look around. Make sure it's nice and clear. You then reverse back. Now you don't have to line up onto exactly the same line you had before. You can use any line. You can use the first one if you want. So if you're using the letter S, you'll go into the third bay along. 1, 2, 3, where the letter I is. But remember, although this is an empty car park, treat it as if it's the busiest car park going. You must do your observations. You must do your 360-degree blind spot check. Just take your time. You then reverse into the bay. As you come round and you straighten up, just come to a stop, have a look in your door mirrors, make sure that you're in between the white lines. Now at this point here, if you have a look and you find that you're not in between the white lines, don't panic, handbrake on into first gear, check your blind spots, move forward, and move forward quite considerably. The further you move forward, the easier it is to steer back into the bay. Come to a stop, handbrake on. Putting that handbrake on just slows you down, give you a little bit of time to think about it, into reverse, check your blind spots, and just reverse into the bay. Just take your time, It feels a bit unnerving because this is the first time that you've obviously got an examiner sat next to you with an iPad, but it just should feel very much similar to when you've got your instructor with you. You'll then get into the bay. If you are very close to one of the lines, as long as you secure the car by putting the handbrake on and putting it to neutral, you can open your door and have a look. But at that point then, you want to be 100% sure that you're in between the two white lines. You might find the examiner might get out just to make sure that you are in between the lines. Sometimes some examiners, if you may be slightly touching the line, might say to you, are you happy with that? That's a little bit of a clue just to say, I'd go forward if I was you, and then come back. The examiner will then ask you to leave the car park. So as you're leaving the car park, there shouldn't be anybody coming back into the car park. So just take your time, first gear. Now just going to the end of the test, more often than not, when you've finished the driving test, the examiner will ask you to come into the car park. Just be cautious of anybody exiting the car park. They'll do one of two things. Either one, they'll stop you and ask you to carry out the reverse parking maneuver. So you just repeat everything again. You just head towards one of these letters, the letter E, the letter X, come to a stop, handbrake on into reverse, have a good look around. The only thing that's going to be maybe a little bit different is that there might already be another car here. So you just have to make sure that whatever line you line up on, that the third bay is empty. Because if there's a car there, obviously, then you're not allowed to go into that. You won't be able to go into that bay. But the key thing is just take your time, have a good look around, reverse back. If there's nobody in the car park, you can just line up on the first line or the second line if you want and get yourself into the bay. If they don't want you to do a bay park at the end, they will ask you, could you just drive forward into any bay? This isn't a manoeuvre, this is just the way that they want you to finish the test. You drive forward into a bay. The examiner will then ask you to make yourself comfortable, so handbrake on, into neutral, turn the engine off, take your seatbelt off. The examiner will then give you the result of your test. So the examiner should wait for your driving instructor if you've given them permission for the instructor to come over. The instructor will come over. The examiner may ask you to go on, the instructor to sit in the back, or for you to open the door or wind down the window. They will then give you the information on your driving test, whether you've passed or failed. Now if you failed, they will ask you to, would you want me to go over the reasons why you failed, or they might ask you, do you know why you failed? If you've passed, they'll say congratulations, I'm pleased to say that you've passed your driving test, and they will explain to you maybe if you've committed any faults. They'll go over the faults and everything. They'll then complete the paperwork and give you a certificate. The certificate is a small piece of paper which is your driving license until you get your new driving license. They will ask you, do you want me to process your driving license? Say yes, because if you give it to them, as soon as they step out of the car and they get Wi-Fi for their iPad, the process of your new license has already been done. So you should get your driving license in maybe 3 to 4 days, usually pretty quick. Going back to when you're leaving the car park at the beginning of your test, just take your time. Like I said, there shouldn't be anybody leaving the car park. So first gear. At this point here, this is obviously, I'd say probably the most nervous bit, because you realise, okay, my test is happening now. You just got to grit your teeth, take your time. You go all the way up to the end of the car park and they'll ask you to turn left. So just take your time, make sure you have a good look around, and it also depends on what time of the day your driving test is. If it's early in the morning or late afternoon, one thing you may have to consider is kids coming home from school, so it might be slightly busier. So things have to take into consideration is when you get to the T-junction, is there any pedestrians standing there waiting to cross the road. So first gear, as you're coming out of here, you'll then go to the end of this road. You either turn left or you'll turn right. Like I said, be cautious of pedestrians, maybe turning left or turning right. You usually find once you get going, so if you turn right, once you head up towards the mini roundabout, or if you turn left heading down towards the Buckingham Road, usually your nerves settle. And you usually find if you can just focus and just talk to yourself, you'll be fine. When you come back after your test, the examiner will just asks you to turn right, drive down this road, just be cautious of anybody leaving the car park, and then they'll ask you to drive into a bay.